Hello, everyone. Today, I'd like to give my hot take on the band Oasis. Now, Oasis was a band I'd pretty much totally forgotten. Maybe outside of the 2012 Olympics in London, I think they did either the opening or closing ceremony. They played, they appeared on it, and I think they played a song or two on it. But it's a band I totally forgotten about, and I could care less about too. But just recently, about a week ago, I get a new subscription for music, and in my inbox, one of the emails had the headline, "The Oasis Band Reunion Tour," and I'm like, okay. First thing that came to my mind was these guys must be broke, and they had to kind of get back together and do a tour and make some money back, right? That's the first thing that came to my mind. Now, actually reading the contents of that headline, they were talking about fans who were complaining that the prices were expensive, the tickets for that. And immediately what came to my mind was, hey, it's inflation, I mean, I get inflation is ridiculous these days. Everything's expensive, right? If you're going to see them at these dive bars, tickets are going to be expensive, drinks going to be expensive. It's just expected, you know what I mean? And reading a little bit on, they're not only complaining about ticket prices, but it's so hard to get because they're already sold out at venues like Wembley, all around, these major venues around the UK. And I'm like, now this shocked me. Okay. Oasis today, their tour being already sold out at Wembley today. Oasis, Wembley, sold out? Ah, you gotta be kidding me. My reaction to this is because to this day, and even back then when I first knew of them, I thought they were a totally overrated band, hands down. Overrated to that respect. Now, fast back to the mid 90s, okay? I'd say 94, 95, when What's the Story Morning Glory came out, okay? That album here in the States was pretty popular, I'll admit. You couldn't miss it, right? The two radio stations that played modern rock, alternative rock at the time, would play Oasis, and I would hear the two songs played from time to time would be Wonderwall and Champagne Supernova. And if you go to like Tower Records or something, they always have like these big posters of albums that were coming out or popular, and you couldn't miss What's the Story Morning Glory. You couldn't miss it. They were pasted pretty much everywhere. Now, when I listened to Wonderwall and Champagne Supernova, my impression as a little kid listening to it, I've always thought that, it's just mid. Now, granted, we're talking about at a period where grunge was still popular. I think Nirvana. You got the Nirvanas, the Pearl Jams, STP. Those groups, right? And then you got Oasis. Now, I didn't really understand. I thought they were just okay. Maybe from a popularity standpoint, as a kid at that time, I always thought that their music were hits because they sounded different stylistically than like Nirvana, like Pearl Jam. They're just different sounding. So maybe it's just getting a little mixture or different tastes into to the popular music for modern rock. Maybe that's what I thought as a kid. Now, besides those two songs, I had a buddy who was really into that alternative rock scene, and he also had the album What's the Story Morning Glory. And I went to his place one time, and he had the CD. I was like, hey, just play the CD for me, and pretty much played a few songs, and I didn't really get into it. I let him know that too. He actually let me borrow his CD to take home and listen to. And that's when I took it home, listened to the whole album maybe a couple times. I did skip the tracks that I already knew, like Wonderwall, Champagne Supernova, but I really wanted to listen to the rest of their stuff. And after a couple listens, I just returned it. So this was my take as a little kid. I always thought their music was like, after listening to Morning Story, What's the Story, Morning Glory? I keep getting that mixed up for some reason. But I always thought Oasis as a group and their music was like a bargain basement version of soft rock music. These days it's called yacht rock. I still don't know why, but at the time as a kid, it was soft rock. You know, the soft rock 70s music type stuff. So it was like, or light rock, that type of thing. I always thought they were just a cut rate version of yacht rock, and from listening to What's the Story, Morning Glory. And it's music that I don't hate at all. It's not like I hate it, but I don't like it either because it was just nothing. It wasn't memorable. Nothing excites me about their music or anything like that. Their style, again, is just, I thought it was just a few tiers below your standard soft rock, yacht rock music of the 70s and maybe early 80s or so. That's what it was to me, and I maybe thought that maybe they became popular because their music was that, and it was just different from Nirvana or so, you know, other more harder rock music of the day of that time period. However, going to another buddy of mine, he had cable, and he would have the MTV, and I think VH1 already came out at that time as well. And I was watching music videos, doing homework or trying to do homework with the music videos. And Oasis would pop up, right? Wonderwall, Champagne Supernova. So I would see them visually. And also at that time, I don't know if it's Liam or Noel Gallagher, one of the two brothers. Seemed like they like to do interviews at that time, or they're popular with interviews, like. And I don't exactly know which station or what the interview was, or what what they were really, how it started, but the interview came out like this. I think it was Noel Gallagher, and he mentioned that Oasis, for some reason, was just better or bigger than the Beatles. Okay, when I first heard that, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Now, I didn't know exactly what the context was, but saying that they were either better or bigger than the Beatles, I was just like, well, you're idiots. Total idiots, okay? First off, nowhere close to the Beatles. Not only that, their music, up through What's the Story, Morning Glory, they were nowhere near any of the original British Invasion artists or groups, period. None of them. You name anyone from that era, the first British Invasion, they're just better than Oasis. Oasis doesn't come close. And I'm even including Hermits, okay? I did a video on them earlier, but and no comparison. Different class. And I'm not just talking about, like, there's a huge, like, gap between the classes here. So, like, we're talking about like A++ and like a D. You know what I'm talking about? That's how, when I'm talking about classes, the separation. I'm going to throw it in there. Oasis, musically as a band, not even close to even the second British Invasion. We're talking about the 80s here, right? We're talking about Duran Duran, Tears for Fears, Eurythmics, Culture Club, Wham, George Michael, that kind of stuff. Granted, I didn't like the synthesizers period as well of the 80s, but that second British Invasion, those artists and bands that came out much better than Oasis, hands down. They're not, Oasis weren't even close to those bands at the time as well. So I don't know where the Beatles came from or why there's so many references to the Beatles being Oasis. And the only thing I could think about is that I'm pretty sure one of them looked like John Lennon with the glasses on and so forth. Maybe he was wearing similar style glasses or something like that. Um, I don't know. It looked like John Lennon. I don't know which one, but how ironic though. John Lennon, he was the guy that said that the Beatles were what bigger than God or something, or what was it? Bigger than Jesus or more popular than Jesus? I don't know. Okay, granted. Okay, whenever John Lennon said that, I think it was either in 66 or 67 when he said that, the Beatles were pretty much like, damn. I mean, I'm not saying it was right that John Lennon said it, but I can understand why he said it at that point in time in the Beatles' careers. I mean, shoot. They were the biggest thing, period. I'm way I was born way after all that, but from what I understood, I can understand why John Lennon would say something like that, even though it's not right, but I can understand. However, Noel or Liam, whoever said that, I don't know why they could say that. There was no point in time where they anywhere near the Beatles, better, bigger, whatever. I just nowhere near that. Okay, to me, a complete idiot saying that. Not only that, I think the interview, or maybe it was a different interview, where they were talking about Oasis, and I think it was Noel still being interviewed. And they're talking about the other Britpop bands of the time, and I think Blur was mentioned. And they're saying like Oasis is the Beatles. I don't understand why the Beatles keep coming up, but Oasis was supposed to be the next Beatles or something like that, or they're the Beatles, and Blur was like the Rolling Stones, and Noel would basically kind of shot back and said, "Ain't the Rolling Stones, more like the Monkees." Now, I understood what he was trying to make a point at. I knew he was trying to diss Blur by saying they were the Monkees. But to me, even as a kid at that time, the first thing that came to my mind was, damn, you just dissed the Monkees, man. I mean, and not because of Blur, but no matter what you want to say about the Monkees, I know they're a manufactured group, right? Majority of their hits they didn't make, they didn't write, they didn't really play on any of the instruments outside of a few songs here and there. But from a music output standpoint, the Monkees were way, way better than Oasis, Blur, any of the Britpop groups and artists of that time frame, that mid '90s thing, hands down. I mean, can't even compare to the Monkees, man. I mean, I really don't understand what's going on. And because of those interviews and knowing their music being mid to like, slow, soft rock, yacht rock type style music, at that time, I always thought they were overhyped and overrated. Even back then. And ever since What's the Story pretty much ended, and there's a lot of hype again of at that time when their second album, or was it the third? I don't recall. But the follow-up album to What's the Story was coming out. There's so much hype, but I don't recall anything at all since then. That follow-up album, I don't even know the name or remember the name, what the music was from there. And my buddy who had What's the Story, that was the only album he had of Oasis. He didn't have any follow-up albums or anything like that. And basically from then on out, they basically fell off the face of the earth for me, at least in the States. I don't after What's the Story, Morning Glory, I just never heard of them until really the Olympics and then the news this past week about their reunion tour. So flashback going back then, and then knowing like they basically had a feud, the brothers, and they split up, and for the past 15 or so years, and I've really never heard of anything Oasis musically since What's the Story, Morning Glory. And hearing that they're sold out at Wembley almost immediately for their reunion tour, to me that emphasized one thing, in my opinion. They're one of the most overrated bands of all time, and I'm sticking with it. And you heard my reasoning with that. I still believe it. There's just nothing good about their music. Now, talking about musicianship, first off, they're nothing special. The band members on there, or at least their playing style. There's no, you don't have a Beck on there. You don't have a Clapton. You don't have a Hendrix. You don't have a Page. You don't have a Moon. You don't have a Watts. You don't have Collins on anywhere in that group at all. Okay, so from a musicianship standpoint, nothing special. They're just mid. Okay, now you could say their music, the way their music is, dictates how they play. That is true. That can be true. But also maybe because their lack of musicianship or elite musicianship, that being mid in their playing of their instruments can also dictate how they write their music, right? I mean, that can be true also. Both can be true. And I tend to think it's that as well. So first of all, their musicianship is nothing special, okay? Second of all, because of that, the songwriting, the melodies and stuff like that, the hooks have to be good, okay, if not great, to make them special. And again, What's the Story, Morning Glory, and I listened to a few other songs afterwards before they broke up from Oasis, and I thought they got worse. I mean, in the Morning, What's the Story wasn't special. The rest were worse. To me, the songwriting, lyrically, nothing special. There's no deep lyrics or anything that, ooh, wow, that's pretty cool or anything like that. I think hip hop lyrics and so forth from certain artists much better than whatever Oasis wrote lyrically. And songwriting from a melodic standpoint, harmony, whatever, nothing special, nothing memorable. This is the type of music where it goes in one ear, it comes out the other, and you don't even know it went through, okay? That's what I think of their music. So, again, as I mentioned earlier, do I hate their music? No. Do I like their music? No. They're just truly mid, going one ear to the other and not even knowing you're listening to their music. That's how I think of their music. It's the cut rate version of yacht rock. And hearing that they're still this popular, being able to sell out Wembley and other major venues, and then they're coming to the States as well, surprised me. Definitely surprised me. Because I still think, I've always thought and still think till today, they're a super overrated band, hands down. Okay, not that their music is bad or anything. It's just their popularity for their music. They're just overrated, hands down. I know if Oasis fans are gonna listen to this, you're gonna hate me and diss me. That's fine, but that's my opinion. I explained why, and I'm sticking with it. And it's not a hot take. So tell me what you think. All right, appreciate it. Bye.